So, as you see, guys, I just want to welcome to the masterclass series. We are here with Teddy Savage right now. Now, Teddy, you are a National League fitness trainer at Planet Fitness at the moment. You attended Salisbury College for 4 years with getting a degree in science. Now,
Yep.
just to start things off, could you share some of your early ambitions, what motivated you to strive for success in the chosen field that you've chosen right now?
Yeah, for sure. I think Dejan, and first and foremost, I'm blessed to be here with you today and speaking with you about these things. As a kid, I think that the number one thing I wanted to be was somebody that changed things. I wanted to be a NFL football player, but I didn't just want to be a NFL football player. I wanted to be somebody that changed the position or changed the game in some way. I was blessed at that time to be able to grow up and see people like Barry Sanders, Rod Woodson, Deion Sanders, Randall Cunningham, players that were actually, in my opinion, changing the game, change how the game was played, change how the game was viewed. And I was saying to myself, like, I want to be that guy. I want to be somebody that changes the game and inspires somebody at a young age like these guys are inspiring me without even knowing who I am as a kid growing up in Baltimore City. I also wanted to be an aerospace engineer at a very early age because I was fascinated always with math and science. I think that that's just how my mind worked. When I went outside and I saw certain things happening, like a car accelerating, through a turn or something like that. For me, it was more than just that car doing it. It was the accelerating forces and the friction and all of the formulas that go into it. And from that early age, I knew that I was kind of different. I wasn't necessarily the popular kid in class, right? I wasn't about that. I had big glasses. My mom put me in those ugly sweaters back in the day. Didn't have the most fashionable sneakers and things of that nature. So I wasn't the kid that people were like, yeah, he's the cool kid, but what I was comfortable with who I am. I was always comfortable in my own skin. And because of that, I never veered from my aspirations. I never said, this is what Teddy wants to be, but everybody else wants to be something else. So I want to be what everybody else wants to be. That was never anything that pulled me in that direction. And because of that, I was able to find how traveling in that path of my pursuits and my passion made me somebody that people wanted to be around. Like when I was on the football field and I was doing my thing, everybody, what they used to call me All-Star Ted. Hey, we want All-Star Ted on our team. I was first pick, that kind of thing. And that was also kind of an eye-opening experience for me too. I was like, I don't necessarily have to be that boy that gets all of the girls and the girls want his number and whispering about him. I don't have to be the kid that has the Jordans that cost the most or all of these other things. Like I can just be me, and people will see how special I can be, and so as a youngster, that was everything for me. It was wanting to be the best that I could be in sports, and it was also wanting to pursue that math and science passion that I have for aerospace engineering.
I respect that. And, just speaking about that type of character that you build up, who are some of the key people or role models who influenced your journey to success, and gave you those valuable lessons that you learned along the way to
Mm.
help build that type of character that you have?
Yeah, I gotta start with my mom. My mom is like 4'11", and a small stick of dynamite, right? She's explosive,
Yeah.
and she's a preacher, and so we grew up in a church, my sisters and I, and seeing my mom be up there in her element and speaking the word of God and doing it with such conviction, and being so bodacious and boisterous about it. Again, in an unassuming physical stature, her presence was like, bigger than the whole congregation. And she inspired me because not only was she doing that, on Sundays, but even before when she was doing her meditations and things throughout the week, she was also a registered nurse and then also became director of nursing and also made sure my sisters and I gave all of our necessary attention to being the best we could in terms of our schoolwork. That showed me a lot. That showed me how to lead. That showed me how to be selfless and how to be disciplined. And it really also pushed me to, like I said before, shut off, those distractions that could possibly go in the wrong path. She used to tell me, it's funny, Deshaun, she used to say, Teddy, you're going to be a preacher one day. Because she saw, I had such exuberance in my spirit. And I knew at that age, I knew I was doing stuff behind the back, taking cookies when I wasn't supposed to, eating snacks when I wasn't supposed to, that kind of a thing. And I thought at that time, you had to be a blameless person. You had to be perfect in order to be a preacher. So I said, I'm not going to be a preacher. But what I realized is that what I do now as a director of fitness training and a National League trainer, that's my ministry. So she really was pivotal in helping me to understand that and helping me to acknowledge what I had in myself to be able to pass on to others. I got to also say my dad, right? I would feel remiss if I didn't also say my dad. He is a soft-spoken, hard-working man, right? He worked so much overtime that I thought that was his actual job schedule, right? And didn't find out about it until I was a grown-up. And he was like, yeah, every Sunday when I was working, that was always overtime. So he worked 6 days out of the week, but he never missed a practice. He never missed he always dropped me off to practice. He never missed a game. And so that dedication and commitment and, again, selflessness and unspoken leadership was tremendous for me, because it showed me. I remember the first time I had success on the football field. Again, I said that I watched Deion Sanders when I was coming up, right? I thought when you score, you dance. So I scored and I danced in the end zone. And of course, I got a flag on me because you're not supposed to do that in Little League. And I remember after the game feeling good about myself and saying, Dad, you see that? And he was like, I saw it, Teddy. But just remember, when you do great things, act like you've been there before. Act like you were supposed to do that. And so I carry that with me to this day as something that I expect to do great things. And so if those things come to pass, I'm not going to grandstand about it. I'm going to act like it's supposed to happen. And so, he instilled that in me. And I think that those two were my most powerful influences coming up.
I respect that, man. And I see that you as a youthful kid, you translated those skills over to the position that you're doing right now. Like you say, you being a trainer, that's your ministry. They said you were a preacher, but it's all like symbolism. It's symbolic in the nature that you was able to take those skills and use it for the best of your ability and something that you're passionate about. Now, for your educational and professional development, what steps did you take to further your education and develop your skills in order to reach the level of success you have achieved?
Absolutely. And education is so important. Education is so important. And I can't stress that enough for anybody who may be watching this. Understanding that it's not necessarily about the content and the information that you're absorbing as much as it is about the practices and the behaviors and those habits that you're forming that are going to help you to do whatever you want to do in life, right? I tell people all the time, my most integral, I guess, chapter within my academic career was kindergarten to sixth grade, right? That was the most influential for me. And I went to a Lutheran private school. And then at Lutheran private school, we had to memorize biblical scripture. And then we had to be able to recite that scripture in front of the class, right? In front of everybody. And everything that we learned, it was a very rigorous curriculum. Everything that we had to do there helped me from that point forward to be successful. How to memorize topics, not to be bashful or shy in front of groups of people, how to be able to articulate yourself and to do so with conviction, how to be able to study, right? And to make time and time management and things of that nature. And so from there, I went to Roland Park and then Deer Park. But the second most influential chapter in my academic career was high school. I went to Baltimore Polytechnic Institute. And anybody who knows that type of school, or that school in particular, it is a very rigorous school when it comes to curriculum. But when I went there, I already had the mindset that I had garnered from kindergarten through sixth. I don't care how hard it is. I know what I can do to succeed. I know what it's going to take, whether it be extra hours of me sitting in a room by myself to be able to absorb that content and then to be able to reciprocate that content and articulate it to myself in the mirror, right? To be able to have that recall, tremendous help within that. And then so from that, and my love for passion, my love for coaching, my love for athleticism drove me into wanting to get into training. And so through training, I was able to acquire my CPT from NCSF, right, the National Council of Sports and Fitness. And so through that, I kind of learned those very industry specific constraints that I needed to know in order to go out and be a professional certified trainer. But everything that I needed in terms of intangibles, I was able to garner through the adventures that God had placed me in throughout life. And that's another thing that, you know, we should understand as human beings. It's not always that we need to specifically prepare for that thing that we're at right now. It's more so acknowledging everything that we've been through to that point has prepared you for that, you know. And so I found confidence in that, and that's what has allowed me to ascend to the role that I'm in today from an academic standpoint. When I grew up, you know, I grew up in Baltimore City, and a lot of people hear about Baltimore City and it has a negative connotation to it. It's a lot of crime, it's a lot of violence, it's a lot of you know, things that could put you on the wrong path in life. And it's very real. You know, it's a very real thing. I remember when the show The Wire was on TV, it was on HBO, and it was very prominent show. A lot of people knew about it. And I was working actually as an investment consultant in, you know, one of my chapters in life. And people would call and say, "Hey, where you guys located?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm in Baltimore." And they'd be like, "Oh man, is it really like how it is on The Wire?" And I would tell them, it is in that part of the city. You know, if you go to that part of the city, it is.
Yeah.
And I say all of that to say there were very real dangers in that environment. And it was very easy to go the wrong way. But through adversity, right, you kind of find yourself understanding that I don't have to be a victim of my circumstances. I don't have to succumb to my environment in which I find myself. I can transcend those things. And you do it intentionally. It's not just going to happen, right? You making concerted efforts to be able to curb those things and stiff arm those things. For using a football analogy, I'm stiff arming all of the drugs, the violence, the peer pressure, all of the things like that. And so that was one of the first things that I had to overcome as a child, you know. And the next thing was overcoming the societal demand to be part of the crowd, right? Everybody, you know, you got to dress a certain way, you got to talk a certain way, you got to look a certain way, and if you don't, then you're the cornball, you're a nerd, you're you know, your shoes look whatever, you know, all of those things, and a lot of times that can weigh on your self-confidence and cause people to feel less than, right? And because of that, they seek external validation. And when you do that, you're chasing a never-ending target, right? There's never a finish line to that when you seek an external validation. And so for me, it was again telling myself, I don't need to be anybody else. I'm gonna be me. And if you don't like who I am, if that's not really for you, that's cool too. Because I don't need to be for you, just like you don't need to be for me. And I think that was important for me to understand in terms of overcoming something, because had I wanted to be a carbon copy, I would just be another Joe Blow, right? And you probably wouldn't be having this conversation with me. So that was another thing that I had to overcome. And then you know, if we're going to talk about it, it's understanding as a minority, as a man of color,
Mm-hmm.
that the world is not going to readily open doors and opportunities for you. It's just not going to happen. There are going to be people who are acting against you, being you as an opposition, and you're going to have to work twice as hard to get certain things that people do have to work and have double the privilege to get. And that's not something that is something that's happening right now. It's been happening in our history for centuries, right? And so as a man of color, you have to, as a person of color, as a person minority, you don't approach that as a variable that may or may not be there. You approach that as a constant in the equation, and you adjust your strategy accordingly. You make sure that you ratchet up your intensity and preparation accordingly. When you step into an opportunity, you not only show up, you show out accordingly, so that those individuals who make the decisions on who gets what, they can't deny you. They can see you, right? And they see that you look differently than these other candidates, and maybe they want to go towards those other candidates because maybe they're not minorities, but they cannot deny what you have. And so that was another point of adversity. And I think that a lot of times we use that as a deterrent, and I say we should use it as an accelerant.
I respect that. Every journey has a pivotal moment that shapes the path to success. Could you share some of those moments that have influenced your career?
For sure. I think one of the most influential periods of my life was going into college and playing college football at Salisbury University. My coach was Coach Wood, Coach Sherman Wood, still there. Just got his 200th win too. So shout out to Coach Wood and that whole SU program. But going there was the toughest thing that I had ever been confronted with in my life at that time. A couple of things happened is the reason why I say that. And the reason why it was a pivotal moment for me. I was highly recruited coming out of high school and was supposed to go to bigger universities, based on where I was being recruited. My cousin went to Salisbury University, and we were like brothers. I call him my cousin, but we were like brothers. And so I made the decision. I said, hey, I'm gonna go to Salisbury and just play, a year or two with you, and then go somewhere else where I'm supposed to be red shirt and then play on that level, right? And I thought it was gonna be that easy. So I show up to Salisbury, and camp at that time was 2-a-days every single day for 2 weeks straight. And it was in the eastern shore of Baltimore, or of Maryland, I should say. And it is humid and it is hot. It's like you are walking on the surface of the sun. And I remember being in August, 2-a-days, doing conditioning and being on a line and mentally being like, it's never been this hard. Never been this hard for me. And I felt like I was always somebody who exceeded. And I remember being on the line one day. It was one of the first days at camp as a freshman. And Coach Wood said you wanted to be one. Said you wanted to be one. He said it to everybody, right? Said you wanted to be one. And I'm thinking to myself, like, said I wanted to be what? Like, when did I say I wanted to be this? And what contract did I sign where I said I wanted to do whatever you're telling me? But I later found out what he was saying was, you said by showing up that you wanted to be a part of something bigger than yourself. You said by showing up that you were going to do whatever it took, not for yourself, but for the person on the right and the person on the left. You said no matter what the cost, you were going to pay it to lead to victory. And that was pivotal, because any athlete who may be listening to this, when you are in high school, your athletic prowess will carry you, right? If you're the fastest on the field, you're going to be the fastest. If you have the most side-to-side agility, you will be the most elusive. If you just got natural God-given ability, you will shine above pretty much everybody else on that field. But once you get to college, everybody who was that is on the same level. And so it is your work ethic, it is your mental fortitude and your toughness that will separate you. And that was a pivotal moment for me, because it showed me that my natural abilities are not enough. So what you do naturally is not enough to exceed on the highest level. You must do something else. You must work harder. You must dig deeper. You must sacrifice more in order to get to that higher level.
I respect that. And you currently hold a prominent position as a national lead trainer at Planet Fitness. How did this opportunity come about, and what do you find most fulfilling about your current role?
Yeah, and so I actually was introduced to Planet Fitness in 2011, and I was coming off of personal situation that had brought me to my knees, right? And I was just trying to find myself again. And like I told you before, my earliest motivation and place that got me my strength was sports and fitness. So I went into this gym that was close by my mom and dad's house, and it was Planet Fitness. I hadn't heard of it because it wasn't over in Texas where I was living at the time. And so I went in just looking for a gym membership, right, to work out. And lo and behold, my high school football teammate was the manager of the gym. Again, everything that you go through in life leads you to the next point in life, right? And so I was like, oh man, he's like, Teddy, what's going on? Hadn't seen you since high school. So we got to talking. I told him about what had transpired in my life, which led me to this point. He could see that I was kind of falling on harder times. And he was like, hey man, you want a job? And I was like, does it come with a membership? And he said, yeah. And I was like, well, you signed me up twice. So, I started working at Planet Fitness as a part-time front desk associate. I'm wiping treadmills. I'm cleaning the locker rooms. I'm, giving tours, everything that you got to do. But I'm doing it with the type of mentality that my father taught me when I was a kid. You do everything that you do 110%. So that represents who you are as a person. So, I wasn't just cleaning treadmills. I was immaculately cleaning treadmills. I wasn't just giving tours. I was giving the best experience that anybody could ever have. And then I told my high school football team, and I said, hey, if the trainer position ever opens up, let me know, because I'm going to take this thing to the next level. And one day he pulled me in the office and he was like, you ready? And I said, say no more. I took my little staff shirt off. I put the trainer shirt on. And from that point on, the program went from maybe 8 people in a day to having 10 to 12 people per class, throughout the day. And it was tremendous. It was a tremendous time. And, the thing about it is it didn't stop there. Somebody who was like, I'm okay with just being okay, might have been like, that's cool. I'm a great trainer. That's all I'm gonna be, and I'm fine with that. But it went from trainer to then I became assistant manager to then general manager of 2 locations. And then, being a man of faith, I used to pray before I went into the club every day, because one of the locations I was opening up was in the heart of a urban setting, and it had a lot of challenges to it. And one day, it was just too much for me, because I was too far away from the passion that I had on my life. Like my mom said, I had a ministry inside of me, and at that time I was too far away from that. I was just a manager, right? I was managing situations, doing bank deposits and signing off on stuff. And I remember one day calling my regional manager and saying, hey, I can't do this no more. And he was like, what do you mean? I can't manage the location anymore. I want to be a trainer. And he was like, okay, I hear you. And I've seen you train, so I know that's your passion, but I want to be real with you and tell you that you're about to go from a salary general manager back down to an hourly trainer. And that's a significant pay cut. And I just got to be real with you. And I was like, so be it. This is what God has for me. And so I did that, Deshaun. I went back down to being a trainer. And then I proposed to my franchise group that I wanted to be the person that oversaw all of our trainers, to be able to lead them to create a high level experience no matter what location they were in. And my ownership group was like, it's a good idea. We'll let you pilot that idea over 7 clubs. And that was in 2014. And that was the last time I was just a trainer, because from there I created my own position, which was fitness training coordinator. And then I oversaw 32 clubs for that franchise. From that point to this point now, being the National League trainer over all of Planet Fitness, and that's 2,400 plus locations in the U.S. and abroad. So it's just a blessing to be able to be here.
Balancing a successful career and personal life is a common challenge. How do you manage this balance, and what strategies have you found to be effective in maintaining the well-being?
Yeah, for sure. And you hit the nail on the head, Deshaun. I think it's very important that we understand that every part of your life has equal value. I think that's the most important thing that you have to come to terms with. Is not that one has more weight than the other. And so because of it, you have to concertedly create the time necessary to give it that attention. One thing that I've done that has worked well for me was making sure that my calendar is accurate, not only to what I know it's coming, but also what I want to have. So I'll put the time on there, even if it's, hey, go on a walk with your son and your wife. I'm putting that on there. And so that way it's going to ping and remind me that this is something that I want to do. You find yourself kind of getting lost sometimes in the unexpectedness of life in your day to day. And so it's very important to make sure that you have those reminders set on your calendar. And then, lastly, again, understanding that it takes effort, right? Things aren't just going to fall into place as you hope that they do. You have to make a concerted effort to make sure that things happen, and that happens only through intentionality.
Respect that. And then in your journey to success, how important is it for you to positively impact the lives of others, whether through your work, mentorship, or other means?
Mm. That's such a very impactful thing to speak on. I think everything that we do in this life is meant to be passed on to others. We were never meant to be individuals living an individual experience. If we were, we would not have been placed on this planet that has so many other people and things and animals and environmental plants and things like that we can interact with. And I think that it's super important to know that your legacy and what lives on beyond you is not going to be what you do. It's going to be how you empower others to do what they do, and then exponentially through what they do to help others. And understanding that selflessness is what has driven our humanity, right, to be where we are right now, through the adversity that we've had to overcome, through the triumphs and the trials and tribulations. It's a togetherness that has gotten us here. And I think it's super important to do our part individually to be connected to those around us and understand that that's the true measure of success. Not how good you are, but how good you make those around you.
Respect. Just last closing thoughts. I do appreciate you telling us about your incredible journey and success. Now, for those who aspire to achieve their own success, which advice or insight would you offer based off your journey and experiences to the audience out there?
Yeah. First and foremost, believe in your journey. Believe in not only what you want to do and what you want to be, but believe in the steps that it's going to take you to get to that next chapter in your life. And understand that that journey is not necessarily going to be a straight line, right? You're not going to start at point A and wind up at point Z in a linear fashion. But as long as you move in the direction of your ultimate goals and your passion, then you're going to be moving in the right direction, right? Understand the power of sacrifice. And what I mean by that is knowing that you're going to have to change things in order to yield different outcomes. And that means sometimes eliminating, right? Addition by subtraction. And sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable. But living in your uncomfortableness is what's going to help you arrive at your greatest self. So never seek comfort, always seek that uncomfortable approach. And Langston Hughes said it the best, where he says, without struggle, there's no progress. And a physical standpoint, without friction, there's no forward motion. If you've ever tried to run on ice, you know how hard it is to get your traction because ice doesn't have friction, as much friction, than if you try to run on a track, right? You can really run on a track because it has a higher coefficient of friction. So in life, don't try to skirt around adversity, but instead use it as a propelling force to get to where you want to be in the next journey that you're on. And I think that if we look at life in that way, we understand that sacrifice yields growth. We understand that the journey may not be linear, but as long as I move in the direction of my purpose and my passion, then I'm moving in the right direction. You'll get to where you need to be.
Much respect, man. This right here, man, this is Teddy Savage, guys. I appreciate you, man. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it, Deshaun. You guys have tremendous lives and do extraordinary things.